Hello, my name is Simon Owens, and today we're talking about whether Google can beat Apple and Spotify at streaming music. This is an exciting time if you work within the music industry, because for the first time in years, it's starting to see actual growth. That's mostly because of the rise of paid music streaming apps like Spotify and Apple Music. Collectively, they generated over $2.5 billion in the first half of this year. Streaming revenue now makes up 50% of all music industry revenue. But YouTube, while it's been a major player in the free ad-supported streaming space, has struggled to compete with Apple and Spotify when it comes to the much more lucrative paid streaming. We recently learned that Google is working on a new music streaming service that they're calling Remix, and they're currently negotiating with all the major music labels. Will this finally allow Google to compete with Apple and Spotify? To find out, I interviewed Sam Gutelle, a reporter at Tubefilter who covers the video streaming market. Okay, let's jump right into the interview. Hey Sam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to start with something that you reported on the other day. Can we start by hearing a little bit basically about this new service that Google's going to be launching in the coming months?
Yeah, so the most important thing to know is that the tentative title is Remix, which may not be official because Google and YouTube have really made no official sort of statement about this service so far. Obviously, as it comes closer to its launch date, we expect to get more information from them, but everything that's sort of been battered around the industry has come via, anonymous sources and the like. And Remix is going to be a music service, and this is the music service that Lior Cohen, who was a pretty significant hire by YouTube, a music industry exec. He came on with YouTube, and then he's been building this service, Remix, which is going to be a music streaming service. And the idea seems to be that it's going to be consolidating multiple music streaming services that are owned by Google, because there's Google Play Music and there's YouTube Music, which is under the banner of YouTube Red. And Google and YouTube just kind of looked at these things and said it was confusing, and one of them could get you a subscription for the other, and they just started deciding to consolidate it under one product, which may or may not be called Remix.
Mm-hmm. So up until now, or including now, you subscribe to Google Play Music, right? And then that also gives you a subscription to YouTube Red, which gives you access to all of YouTube's ad-free archives, correct? So that's kind of like the dynamic now, which maybe creates a little bit of like brand confusion, do you think? And then now they're just going to is this more just kind of like a branding exercise of just putting it all under one banner, do you think?
I think that's probably a big part of it. Though I do think there's some potential for it to have some pretty significant changes. I don't want to speculate too much, but a big question on YouTube over the past year and a half or so has been, what's its relationship like with the major labels, which there's been a lot of very public sort of the labels, the big three labels, and a lot of other major music industry entities are calling out YouTube because they think that YouTube doesn't provide enough royalties off of its music that people watch there.
The ad supported version, you mean? The free.
Right. And so the understanding I have is that these labels would like to push more of that viewership onto a subscription-based model, which is what they try to do on Spotify and Apple Music and a lot of other platforms. And so it may be that Remix, again, having Lior Cohen, having a music industry person at the head of this project, maybe it's going to have some features that are going to be more conciliatory towards these labels that really, I mean, I don't know how deep you want me to get in with this, but the labels are kind of trapped in a certain sense into their contracts with YouTube And so they've responded by lashing out against YouTube and sort of vocally criticizing it. And so this may be a way that is for YouTube to sort of make its relationship better.
Yeah, and this
But
attention goes back. Taylor Swift famously pulled her songs from Spotify because of the free version. And this is kind of attention. I mean, do you think that there's this nervousness at YouTube that like one day the music labels could pull the rug out from under them and saying, "Look, we need to roll back our free streaming," and then YouTube, if it doesn't have an alternative, like a really strong product in the paid streaming market, that it's going to suddenly basically be caught with its pants down?
it's hard to say. I mean, so the reason why the labels don't do that now, even though they're pretty unhappy with YouTube's royalty rates, is because if they take their music off YouTube, there's so much content uploaded to YouTube every single day. And, a major Taylor Swift song, someone is going to be uploading that every single day. And the people who go to YouTube search, they're just going to find that song and they're still going to watch on YouTube, even if the deals aren't in place. And so what the labels want is to remove the legal protection that YouTube has that prevents it from being culpable for those infringing uploads. But that's been a legal protection that's been tested and has been defended pretty convincingly. There was a recent case between Vimeo and I think Capitol Records, where Vimeo had all its protections backed up by the court. So I feel like YouTube is in a very good place, in that like they have to, if the labels don't lock into these deals, people are still going to be able to find music in this quasi-legal manner on YouTube. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's possible for that to change, that legal protection could change in the future. And then it would be the labels who would have all the power. So it's certainly smart for YouTube to try to make its relationship better while it has the ball in its court, so to speak.
Yeah. So YouTube is certainly a powerful player when it comes to free streaming, but would you say that Google is more of a minor player when it comes to the paid streaming wars? Like in terms of paying subscriptions, like would you say that it's definitely a kind of a third, in a distant third place compared to like Spotify and Apple Music?
Definitely, and I mean, my reporting is more with YouTube, so I'm not sure sort of what the numbers are for Google Play Music. But certainly on YouTube, like the vast majority of their music streaming is still coming ad supported. And, their subscription service, YouTube Red and all that, is only a couple years old, and they're still trying to make up ground and trying to figure out how they're going to make up ground while still keeping true to the video nature of YouTube, which is something that seems to be very important to them. Mm-hmm. But definitely, like Spotify and Apple Music certainly still do seem 1 and 2.
So speaking of the video portion, like that's, you work for Tubefilter, you cover primarily video. Do you think that the video stuff, especially with like YouTube Red, that gives YouTube a competitive advantage? And this also is happening while Spotify is starting to reorganize and reprioritize its video offerings. I think they just fired whoever was the head of that.
Tom Calderone.
Yeah, and Apple Music, like I know they're like Apple keeps on talking about spending $1 billion in video content, but so far like their Planet of the Apps or whatever it was called, like that was kind of a dud. And so like what kind of competitive advantage, like are we seeing indications that music streaming listeners also want that cross functionality with video? Like, do you think that gives YouTube a competitive advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it may, first of all, in the sense that like if they just, don't really focus on the video, what are they going to offer that Spotify doesn't offer already? Mm-hmm. But I do think, what music listeners like about YouTube is they go to the search bar and they type in the song they want to listen to, and it's there. And the means by which it's there, might not always be regulated by the labels or by the brands, but it's there. And in my opinion, that's why all of these music videos on YouTube get such insane numbers, is because, consumers don't want to do this thing where they go on Spotify and they search for a Taylor Swift song and it's not there, and then they have to find a workaround. And so I think that that's really YouTube's greatest advantage, is sort of the reliability of its results. But definitely, sort of to get back to video, like that's also something where, to me, it seems more that YouTube is racing to catch up with Spotify and Apple Music. Everyone's kind of racing to the center a little bit. All of the audio people want to do video, and all the video people want to do audio. And certainly the fact that they have that in place is a strong advantage, because Spotify seems to really be struggling as they try to ramp up video. Apple Music, it's too early to tell, but certainly they're spending a lot of money, and we'll see how much they're able to turn that into viewership.
Mm-hmm. So, and you would be in more position to know. I seem to remember reading that YouTube has caused a kind of resurgence in interest in music videos. So, like in the '90s, you saw kind of a waning of interest in music videos, especially with MTV, kind of like really not seeing good ratings with them and kind of de-emphasizing them. And they kind of, like, music videos kind of fell out of favor, out of cultural influence in the mid-aughts. Do you think that we're seeing a resurgence of the influence of the music video and a consumer interest in it?
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case. I mean, in the most obvious sense, you have bands like OK Go, where like a huge portion of their popularity is based around these incredible, detailed music videos that they make. But even if you look at something like Gangnam Style, which for a long time was the most viewed video on YouTube, in one sense, Psy was a huge star in Korea and was just getting a bunch of native viewership from there. But a lot of people sort of looked at this crazy music video and they had to share it, and it sort of became this huge moment. And now K-pop, I mean, is a huge thing everywhere, not just in Korea. And
there was like a Latin music song that just hit like 4 billion views, right?
Yeah, which is interesting, because I think that music video is, not much of anything.
Yeah.
No offense to Louis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee.
Yeah.
I like the song, but the music video is pretty plain. Which I guess would be the counter argument, is like, you can definitely, a good music video can get you pretty far in the YouTube age, but also if you have the right combination of ingredients, then you might not need it. You can still get a ton of views by just doing something pretty plain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Sam, those were all the questions I had. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Okay. That's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for watching, and please be sure to subscribe.